you hear? Won't you please come to Austin? Come on for a ride. Don't ask police to help you, 'cause they'll turn the other ear. Won't you please come to Austin, or else join the other side? We can change.
I think you should stop Syrian war. It's bad because it's just killing more people.
We're against war. We want peace.
My father is in the military and I don't want him to go die and get killed or kill other people.
When do we want peace? When do we want it now? When do we want peace? When do we want it now?
The historical context is that there's been a popular uprising which initiated in Syria about 2 years ago. That popular uprising was first non-armed. It escalated into an armed conflict. A lot of people believe that the armed conflict escalated through the instigation of countries whose interests are dependent on a collapse or at least a break of Syria as a major political player in the area. Saudi Arabia, who has armed the rebels from the beginning, Turkey and Qatar, with the support of the United States, are hugely responsible for the fact that the armed conflict has escalated to this point.
This is the first time that I have seen the vast majority of the American population say no to a U.S. intervention. This is a turning point. We are witnessing an awakening in our nation across the board. Don't let the falsehoods and the propagandas tell you otherwise. People are beginning to realize that they do not have power over their government. People are sick and tired of the lying and the deception.
Syria's been a huge issue for years in America, and this intervention is absolutely wrong. Bombing Syria is not a solution. It's putting problems on problems. It's killing more people. It's not benefiting Syrian refugees. It's not benefiting Syrians who are still in Syria. It's absolutely not a solution.
There's really no reason to be there other than selfish, greedy reasons. I'm just doing anything I can do rather than just sit there and hold my breath waiting for Congress to decide what they're going to vote on. We're getting a lot of support from military, from police departments, so everybody is, I think, on the same page here in Austin.
Just like the other wars, I was with Cindy Sheehan against the war in Iraq. I've been consistently opposed to the wars in general. I don't feel they assist the American people. They don't protect so-called national security objectives. It's a waste of time, of money, of treasure, of valuable American lives, and not to mention the civilians in those countries that don't really get much of a say in what the U.S. government does over in their own backyard. As far as Syria is concerned, I have a friend in Damascus who I actually grew up with here up in Dallas, Texas. And right now I'm very concerned about, potentially my tax dollars being used to send a bomb that might blow up my good friend who's a U.S. citizen. That would just be the icing on the cake for the irony department. But, I shouldn't just care because it's one American citizen. There's other Damascus residents, other Syrian citizens that would be killed as well, and their lives are equally as valuable. So I think we should just stay out of it and let them take care of it.
We, as a major superpower that actually has the control of the funding and the arming of a big sector of the rebels, and whatever we are not controlling, some of our major allies in the region are controlling. I believe that an armed resolution of this is not just misinformed, but intentionally serving other interests than the well-being of the Syrian people.
I don't think that the United States has moral obligation to be in Syria. I think that we need to do whatever we need to do to change Obama's mind, to, impeach him. I don't know what we can do, but we got to do something now.
I think the U.S. has a moral obligation to be part of the solution, of the political solution. The U.S. has no reason to be the global cop.
America has no moral obligation to bomb Syria. We have no moral obligation to intervene militarily. The only reason it's a discussion is because of the red line. The red line that if we don't intervene, more chemical attacks will happen And that's just not a good enough reason to bomb anybody. If we do any intervention, it should be peaceful. It should be providing health supplies, clothing, things like that, things that don't warrant more death and violence.
Whether the United States has a moral obligation or not, I cannot tell you. What the United States does not have is the moral authority. The United States, a country which is responsible for the destruction of countries all over the world and the deaths of several million people just over the last 20 years, cannot assume the moral authority to intervene anywhere in the world. What America can do is to rein in its mercenaries right now. And I'm calling them mercenaries because basically we are funding them and we are arming them. And they're working for a salary. We have the capacity to say, this is going to be settled through negotiations. We have the economic, the political power, and the military power to be able to say, we're cutting you off unless you sit down and negotiate. Let us remember that negotiations were called in Geneva and the rebels were allowed to walk away from those negotiations. Assad was willing to negotiate for his own private reasons. What this is about is allowing for the Syrian people to determine their own destiny. And when you have people on the ground who are getting paid to fight, and we are paying them to fight, and we're arming them, and our allies are paying them to fight, it means that we are not really trying to reach a negotiated settlement and peace. We're actually trying to propagate and instigate destruction and war.
If the U.S. is interfering now, what is she doing? From far away, when you look at this, you will feel that what they are doing is that they are supporting the Muslims extremists.
Do I think the American government has a moral obligation to intervene in Syria? No, we do not. If the government was to involve itself in another conflict under the justification of humanitarian interventionism, I think the American government would find itself deploying to half of Africa, all kinds of other countries in the Middle East. There's no genuine national security interest. The United States is not under attack from the Syrian military. So that's what they have. It's kind of the fallback banner when you have no other justification. It's just to say, oh, well, think of the children. That's kind of a weak argument in this case.
The American people are catching on that there is something really, really wrong when every 3 or 4 years we invade a geopolitically strategic country in the Middle East with pipelines of oil being built as we speak, and which we don't control and own. This is critical to understand when the hypocrisy of the state begins to fly in our faces. How can they be so concerned about the suffering of children in Syria when they were so unconcerned about the suffering of children in Iraq? 500,000 children were killed or died in Iraq because our U.S. intervention, which was made under false pretenses and yet another lie. The consequences of our invasion are still being felt as we speak. People know that they are being surveilled, and people know that you are not really feeling safe to organize against the belligerence of the state. A state that seems to have forgotten that you cannot just arbitrarily go to war. Well, they've forgotten that for about 200 years. So it's really a long-term memory problem that our government has for launching illegal and imperialistic wars. We know that this has to do with Zionism and international capitalism.
Israel's stance in this conflict is founded in us, in America. They are not the cause of our opinion. They are not the cause of our intervention. America decides what they want to do, and Israel supports it because they're our greatest ally.
The geopolitical relationship of Israel and the United States is undeniable in the region. The relationship, it's been there since the very beginning. We are supportive of Israel's expansionist Zionist policies. There is no doubt about that. And therefore, an attack on Syria, which is one of Israel's primary geopolitical opponents, would lead one to believe that Israel is benefiting from this. The Israeli lobby is real enough. But a lot of people who are white supremacists and who believe that this is a Jewish conspiracy will tell us that if only the United States was not controlled by Israel. We are doing this because of our own interests, not just because of Israel control of U.S. foreign policy. Israel may have an influence, they have a lobby, It's undeniable. But the United States is a superpower. Israel is our beachhead.
Actually, Israel for the U.S. is just one of the states of the U.S. which is in the Middle East. This is the truth. And they want just to protect it because there is another power which is coming, which is like maybe Iran, and which is, always hand in hand with Syria and Hezbollah. So maybe they are afraid of the future of Israel. Maybe this is one of the reasons. And I always ask, and I want to ask every now and then, who is supporting the Muslims extremists and the oppositions? I'm so much with with the opposition, which is, peaceful. But those who are using the guns, who is supporting them? Who's giving the guns? Who's letting the arms enter Syria? This is the question.
Israel certainly plays a role. They share a border with Syria. I'm sure they're invested in one particular outcome, and they're picking sides just like the United States government is. I think they should have the same involvement the U.S. government has, which is none. They should stay out of it. It's not their concern. It's the concern of the Syrian people. The Israeli government would certainly benefit from U.S. involvement from their perspective in Syria just because Israel lacks the manpower. It's a small nation. It has a great many people under arms, but an insufficient number to truly carry out an occupation of Syria or to confront Syria militarily. So I feel that certainly there's a lot of influence through groups like AIPAC to press the United States into involvement in Syria when the vast majority of the American people are opposed to it, and that's not really new.
Nothing good can come of this, okay? And this is not going to be easy. Wars are not easy. Wars are not quick. I mean, I don't know one war that we've been in that's been in and out. I just think that all this is propaganda, just trying to sell this to the American people. And the American people are fed up. This curtain is falling. And the people that are really behind this, they're not going to get our support, that's for sure.
Right now, we're at the brink of a massive conflict that echoes and seems to be a continuation of the Cuban Missile Crisis, okay? Russian ships are now on Syrian shores. This pariah, a rogue nation, really, because we're not listening to the international community and we're not listening to our people. Who do you think that our government is listening to in order to go to war against Syria? Banks. The banks. And who else? Shell, the Rothschilds, more. Monsanto, Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, Exxon Corporation, the Israeli government.
Peace, love, and unity. Peace, love, and unity. Peace, love, and unity.